This is a tutorial on the lease listing agreement, car form LL, revised July of 2024. And the agreement itself is about 5 pages, but it's part of a bundle that's 14 pages long. But don't worry, we'll go through it very quickly. And I'll show you how I would fill this out if I were in the position of doing it today myself. So we start by putting the date we prepare the form up here in the top left, the name of the landlord, also known as the rental property owner, or RPO. That's going to be the term used for the landlord on this form. Name of the brokerage, beginning date and ending date of the listing period. Very important that you have both. If you don't have both a start and finish date for the listing period, this form can be nullified or may potentially just be void from the start. So make sure you have both of those. And then we put in the address for the property and move down to the rental amount. Now this, of course, is our asking price. So we're going to list the property at $3,000 a month with a security deposit of $3,000. That's what we're asking for. Type of tenancy. Now, I would just check all three of these boxes. And other, you're supposed to write something in. I probably wouldn't even write anything in because you don't know what a prospective tenant's going to offer. I mean, you could write in something here if you want. I'm just letting you know, check as much as you can because, or I guess check whatever the landlord is open to. So whatever you're looking for, put it there. I mean, it might be a 1 year or 2 year. I mean, a landlord typically likes a longer lease term. Now, items that are included, of course, some rentals may be furnished. Some rentals may have personal property, as we see on 2E. And if you have items that aren't part of the real property, that aren't already affixed to the premises, then just go ahead and write it in here. And then down here, are there items that are excluded? And they have garage in there. Sometimes the tenant doesn't have access to the garage because the landlord's personal items are in there. You check that box, but this is just for excluded items. Additional terms, anything that hasn't explicitly been mentioned, but you want to make part of this agreement, write it in here. It's just extra space. Now we get down to compensation. This changed a little bit because listing brokers can't offer cooperating brokers compensation anymore. So this is the big change. Now we put in just what you, the landlord's broker, the rental property owner's broker, is going to charge. That's it. Not taking into consideration that you're being paid to offer any money to the tenant's agent. That's how it used to be. So we're just going to say, hey, we're getting 3% of the total amount of rents. And they split it here into a fixed term lease and month to month because there's a problem. If it's a month to month lease and you just put 3%, what do you get 3% of? 1 month? 2 months maybe? It doesn't make sense. You could have too little of a commission. So it's actually nice this is split up. And so we have 3% in a fixed term lease. Of course, you can put a flat fee dollar amount or something entirely different. Maybe 1 gold coin. I'm not sure, but whatever you want, you write it in this space down here. Then we go down here and there's this additional broker compensation line. I have no idea why I put a 3 there. I probably accidentally typed it there when I was looking for this. But if, let's say you need to be reimbursed for some marketing thing, or there's just some other form of compensation you want to charge, maybe a document processing fee or something like that, you could put that in here. But most of the time, you'll leave it blank. If I were filling this out today, I would leave this blank, just so you know. I'm talking about line 3B1B. I'd leave that blank. But if you need to charge for extra, even a transaction coordinator, I'm not sure, you can write that in here. Okay. But then we go to month-to-month rental. Now, we don't want to do a percent of a month-to-month because if someone only rents a place for a few months, well, you're not getting paid very much. So instead, we're doing a flat fee. So I check this box and write in the flat fee here. Okay? Now, you can also, they have an or, check this box and write something here. But that's it. We're done. We're done with the compensation. And it even says here, does not include compensation to a broker representing the tenant because that's gone. The days of the listing broker charging enough to share with another broker, those are now ancient history for realtors. All right. Then there's a bunch of verbiage that I'm not going to read here. You can read it if you want on your own time. The rental property owner aka landlord, is going to initial at the bottom. We move on. We don't do anything until we get down to, what paragraph are we in? We're in paragraph 3F on page 2. And we check this box out of good measure for compensation should the tenant purchase the property. Why not, right? If the tenant buys the property, don't you want to be involved and paid a commission? So check this box and write in what you'd want. I'm being ambitious and writing in 3%, but do whatever you need to. And then we come down here to G, additional compensation due broker if tenant is unrepresented. Now keep in mind, this is not dual agency compensation. This is if a tenant calls you and you say, would you like me to represent you? And the tenant says, absolutely not. I want to be unrepresented. For whatever reason, they refuse. This right here is a way for you to be paid from the landlord a little extra. It can be a percentage or a flat fee. I just wrote in a flat fee. I checked this box and wrote in $500. If you have to deal with the hassle of an unrepresented tenant that might ask for questions or paperwork or call you 20 times for explanations, it's compensation, a bonus for a hassle if the tenant's unrepresented. So you can add something here in this section if you want to. Then it goes on. This is basically a statement that the owner, the property owner, doesn't have some sort of old listing agreement with a former agent where they have someone that entered the premises and there might be some sort of continuation clause in their old listing agreement. And so if this was listed prior to you, read through this, write this in here if you need to. If this wasn't just recently listed or there is no obligation with another broker, just ignore line H. Now we're in paragraph 4. So some of this is a lot of the rest of this form that will swiftly continue through pertains to informing you so you can market this property better on the MLS and explain to agents, what they're working with in terms of like key box, sign. Will you be able to sign there? You have to check these boxes for authorization of a key box. This actually adds a form KLA. Isn't that fun? That's why this thing's 14 pages long, because basically there's a form now if there's even a remote possibility of anything happening anytime, anywhere. And then sign. So you have to check this if you want to put a sign. If the property owner will take direct electronic payment, check this box. And this really can be decided in the the actual lease agreement, but sure, we'll check this box, we'll check these boxes, we'll move on, because even though this thing is so long, we're going to get through it quickly. Again, I'm showing you how I would fill this out if I were doing it today, Monday, August 19th in the afternoon. Owner's initials, owner's going to sign here. We're continuing on. We're going through all this. This is text. This is like unabridged text. If something comes up, you have an explanation. That's what all this is on these pages. So don't be concerned if I scroll through a lot. There's things that are good in here because they answer questions. Well, what if this happens or what if that happens? And a lot of it is just, like termination of agency relationship and mediation, dispute resolution. I should say, since we're already on this, and this is actually worth bringing up. So one thing that agents often make a mistake with is thinking that once a transaction is complete, that they are still on the hook to offer services to a client. And I get that agents have to walk a fine line between offering good service and slamming the door on a former client when a transaction closes. But you have to be very careful with rentals. And that's what this section is right here if you want to read through it. Basically, once there's a lease agreement on the premises, that terminates the agency relationship. And you can check these additional boxes here if you want to say, once there's tenant occupancy or once keys are delivered. But whether it's a lease or a sale, keep in mind, once that transaction is consummated and the property has recorded and closed escrow, or there's a lease that's signed and the tenant has keys, it's over. You are no longer part of the picture, and you don't want to get dragged into it by acting as a representative, because after a transaction is closed, you're not that person's representative any longer. And if there's an issue, especially like a dispute, someone's unhappy, they don't go through you. You're not an attorney. That's a totally different matter. So I won't go out too far on that tangent, but since we're on this page, I might as well bring it up. Dispute resolution, mediation by default, just to save everyone from going to court if things go out of control. These, I didn't even check these boxes. They automatically get checked. So you don't have to do anything here. Was there a term that you want to add that wasn't already written? Write it in here on 18G. And we're done. So it's not that bad, right? If the property owner is like an LLC, check this box, fill this out, name of the legally authorized signer, and you'll fill out the signature page, and that's it. Okay, but remember it's a 14-page form bundle. So there's two things that it's kind of a double-edged sword. I get why CAR includes these disclosures. They mean well. I also find it a bit excessive to have all this bundled with a listing agreement. So in theory, what we're looking at here is the rental property owner disclosure. Think of a TDS, transfer disclosure statement, from a sale, but only on a lease. That's what this is. And this is just asking your client about the property so it can be disclosed. And that's good. And look, you'll have the tenant to sign here, so the tenant will know all this stuff. Then they go on for a rental property owner questionnaire, which is similar to the seller property questionnaire from a sale, the SPQ. Well, this is the RPOQ. And this is fine too, because really this is trying to extract as much information from the owner as possible, because the more that the owner discloses to the tenant, to the consumer, to the buyer, the more they're reducing their legal liability. So you can have your client fill it out. Now, of course, your client, the question you're going to get on these two disclosure forms is, well, I don't know. I don't know if there was asbestos or this or that, or I bought this home 2 years ago and it was built in the 60s. I mean, they may have some sort of, they may push back because they feel cornered and they don't know the answer and they don't want to put the wrong answer. But like all disclosures, you remind them that, listen, are you aware? Yes or no? Well, I don't know. That's a no. It's not asking whether it exists, whether you have x-ray vision and can see through walls, whether you're an engineer. And I mean, no one expects you to have this omnipotent knowledge about everything pertaining to the property. They're asking, do you know? Do you know if this happens? Because there's people that have leaks in their roofs for 9 months. How about that? Because it doesn't rain that much. And then when it rains in the winter, it starts leaking and everyone's like, well, there's a leak in the roof. Maybe the owner didn't know. I mean, because you don't know until you've actually come across it. And if it hasn't rained and the leak, let's say rats chewed through the roof. This happened in a property, I know. Rats chewed through the roof in the meantime. How on earth would the property owner know until it rained? So the point is that if the answer is not yes, if it's not immediately yes, the answer is no. Okay, I'm going to move through these disclosures because this is very simple. You get asked a question, the answer is either yes, you know, or no, you don't know, because maybe, but you don't know. You're not concealing information. Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory, FHDA form, we've seen this around many times. People are going to sign. California Consumer Privacy Act, another thing people are going to sign. I mean, this is stuff. Okay, key safe. This is that KLA form when you check the box authorizing a lockbox. So I think the reason is because you have to be very careful. I mean, rentals, leases, there are so many rules in California that you have to be very careful about. And so this form, you have the landlord basically authorizing here and acknowledging. Okay, but there's a second part to this form, and that's when there's a tenant involved in which the tenant's going to give permission because you have to be very careful about interrupting a tenant. I mean, it's 24-hour notice to enter the written notice to enter the premises, 48 hours to do an inspection. I mean, there's all these rules when it comes to leases. So if you're going to gain access, then you certainly need to have the tenant involved. And that's why this form's automatically added. And there we went through all 14 pages of this lease listing agreement. I hope it was helpful. I feel like I scrambled through it. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching.